Okay. Yes, so thank you so much for joining us this evening or watching us later. And we're going to talk about getting ready to research and talk all about what a higher degree by research looks like at SICS, the School of Information and Communication Studies. And yes, that other acronym HDR is higher degree by research. We have so many acronyms in education. So I am Kasey Garrison. I'm the school's associate head of school for research, and I'm also our ADR student coordinator. So yeah, your go-to for all research questions for our school. And I'm really grateful for Kate Smithers, who is the course director for the graduate certificate in research, to be speaking about that course tonight, as well as two of our fabulous recent graduates, Romany Manuell, who graduated with her PhD earlier this year, and Jade Smith, who completed the Master's of Information Studies with the Applied Research specialization last year. So with that, I'd just like to do an acknowledgement of country. So as members of the CSU community, we acknowledge the words of the Wiradjuri people on whose land our university was founded and share their aspiration of Yindyamara Wananana. They aim for us all to learn the wisdom of respectfully living well in a land worth living in. And I pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to any First Nations people present here today or engaging with this recording. And I'd also like to note that I live and work in Gadigal and Biribirgal country, and I am speaking to you tonight from those lands. Please feel free to introduce yourself and your country in the chat, or where you're coming from tonight in the chat. Okay, so yes, we're going to talk about why do a PhD. And here's a few reasons, and I must confess, I stole some of these slides from our former SICS HDR coordinator, Philip Hyder, who really loved to talk about the funny hat you get to wear when you do a PhD. That was the best part, right? But yeah, no, of course, there's a lot of work just to get that funny hat. So here's a few reasons. I think for me personally, because it is really a personal decision, isn't it? But when I decided to pursue the PhD, it was really because I loved learning and I just loved being a student. And I loved kind of the university environment and being in that. And I ran out of degrees, and basically got the PhD and then became an academic. But I think if you're interested in doing research, if you've done some in practice, if you want to do something to really impact or influence your field, make a contribution to scholarship and advocate for the profession, which is really important as a librarian and advocating for libraries, then really doing a PhD is a great choice moving forward in that. And as Philip did note here, it also looks impressive on the CV and does take you kind of a step above others without that experience and that degree. So what does it take to do a PhD? Now, generally it's about 3 to 4 years full time, and then you basically double that to 6 to 8 years part time. So it can take a bit of time, a pretty big chunk of your life. So we'll talk about it later, but you want to definitely choose a topic that's of interest to you. We do have some scholarships and fee waivers available for domestic students. And if you're interested in those, I think get in touch with me early so we can talk about how you'd be best placed to apply for that, as they can be competitive, but you can often do things now before you apply that will help enhance your application, like engaging in research in your workplace, maybe doing some lower level research assistant work. Perhaps you could publish something that you've worked on in your prior degree. Yeah, so all those things get you some extra points in these evaluations and are worth kind of planning ahead for that kind of thing. And we do have some international scholarships as well through the government. Those are really competitive, and they just run once a year. So again, it's good to have some time before applying to think about how you can best present yourself for success here. And yeah, that AGRTP, I believe the acronym is Australian Government Research and Training Program scholarships, maybe. Yeah, yes, Kate, thank you. But yeah, and that scholarship is for the both domestic and international. So if you give that a Google, you can see some of the requirements there. And of course, like anything that takes a lot of hard work and thought, it takes a lot of perseverance, determination, and lots of cups of tea and coffee to do the PhD. That's another Philippism, I will say. I got to give him the credit for that. Okay, and so the requirements to get into the PhD. So they include some kind of research aspect to your previous degree. So maybe you did an honors degree and you had that. Our Masters of Communications, Masters of Information Studies with the applied research specialization, which Jade is going to talk about a bit later as the graduate of that course, or the graduate certificate in research, which Kate's going to talk about a bit later. So all of those degrees kind of have that research or the thesis dissertation in common, and that's really what you need to get into the program. So some kind of component where you did a research project and wrote about it in a big paper in the thesis, and that's really it. So when you initially apply for the PhD, be sure to share that with me and your transcripts even too, so that we can be sure that you're ready to apply for the PhD. Because if not, that graduate certificate in research is a really great pathway to then push you towards the PhD. And it also, yeah, I like to kind of encourage students to use that as a way to pilot the idea that maybe they can expand upon for the PhD. And now we also have an option, if you don't have that dissertation or thesis, there is still an option to get into the program if you can demonstrate a research record. So that would include things like peer-reviewed publications. Maybe you've done, maybe you've worked in research and done that more at a professional level. So that's possible to make a case for that too. It's a little bit more challenging, but it's possible we can chat that out too if you think that's a good option for you. Okay, so before you apply, really have a good think, and maybe this is why you're even here already, just even thinking about applying is because you have seen a problem in action in your field, or you have a topic area that you're really passionate about. So what interests you about it? You know, thinking about that, depending if you go full or part-time, you could be doing it for studying it for quite a while. Some Crystal Romany, you can share your thoughts on that, being a PhD and former PhD students, how you really live with that topic and that problem for such a long time. So yeah, think about what interests you on it. And then read up on it. What have other people found? What research is being done or has been done? And you want to know that so you're not, doing something or proposing to do something that someone else has already done and has found. Um, but that'll help you find the gaps. Maybe someone has done something quite similar, but you have a different take on it, or maybe you want to study it in a different area, have a different sample, that kind of thing. So it's good to read up a little bit and see what's already happening out there around your topic. You may also want to talk to your lecturers or expert practitioners in the field about what they think of the topic and what they think really could be impactful research that needs to be something that needs to be done. You'll often find in some of the research articles you read at the end, there'll be some kind of directions for future research. That's a great area to look in if yeah, if you're looking for this kind of information, especially if it's a study that really interests you. If that author is saying, oh, I think it'd be great if someone did a study on that and that aligns with your interests, then yes, that's great. And yeah, at these initial stages, it can be useful, but you're not required to talk to some potential supervisors in the school. Maybe you've had a lecturer that's talked about their research and you find some commonalities there with what you're interested in. That can be a great way to think about who you'd like to work with as well on this, because yeah, like Crystal saying, 6 years she's been doing this, and like we've been working that whole time together. Crystal's one of my PhD students, and luckily we work wonderfully together, and she's fabulous. So that's good. But yeah, so there's quite a few things to consider there. Um, And then, yeah, this QR code I've included here, that's actually will take you to the site, and I've included it at the end of the presentation too, so don't worry about doing a research degree at our SICS website. And from that link, there is a little link that can help you look at what some of your lecturers in the school, what some of the things that we're publishing and what we're researching in. So that might help you identify someone in a similar area. Okay. And again, that's not a requirement, but you're really more than welcome to contact me and we can talk a bit about that too, who I know in the school who might be interested in your work. And then write a short proposal. I know sometimes writing can be a bit daunting, but just write some of your thoughts out, some of the references you've reviewed. It's a really good start too. And then I can see who might be well matched to your interests, which might be interests by topic you're studying, or it might also be related to methodology if there's a certain method that you know you want to pursue. So you don't have to have anything definite or specific at this point, but you do need to have an idea of something in the beginning, and that might change and evolve, and that's really expected as you're learning more about what's out there and what kind of research might fit best with the problem that you've identified and the thing that you want to study. And again, I'm really happy to chat with you on this by email or on the phone, but that QR code will take you to our school page discussing some of these more steps in detail. And also my contact details are there, which included at the end of the presentation too. So with that, I'll just hand over to Kate, who is going to talk about the graduate certificate in research. And again, that's another pathway, potential pathway to the PhD. Yeah. So Kate, are
Hi,
you
everyone.
able to talk?
Yes, can you hear me?
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm the graduate certificate in research course director, but I'm also the course director for the Bachelor of Arts and Social Sciences, which is our faculty honours program as well. So the grad cert and the honours are pretty similar, but so if there is anyone watching who would be interested in honours course, we also do have an honours course as well. But the graduate certificate in research, if you just want to go to the next, yeah. So it provides opportunities to gain an introduction to research. It can also help you develop your research capacity that can enrich your professional practice. And it also establishes an entry pathway into our HDR programs here, including the PhD. And I think also that second dot point is important. So while the graduate certificate in research is a pathway to the PhD, it also does provide students with a great opportunity to learn how to write an extended report based on research, how to do literature reviews, how to really in-depth look at a topic, write some research questions and develop a way of investigating an issue that can really help professional practice as well. So don't just consider it as a pathway, although it is a really strong pathway that we have here at CSU, but it can also help develop your skills in your profession as well. And it is essentially, like Kasey said, a little practice go at research so you can see if it is something that you're interested in. So if you haven't had a chance to do research before, like in an honours course or in your master's, it could be a really good way to dip your toe in and see if a research program would be for you, as there are some people who most of us who get into research love it, but there are some people who realize it might not be for them, and like a longer course of 3 to 6 years potentially is too long for them. So it's a really good way to just dip your toe in. If you go to the next slide now, Kasey. So I thought I'd just give an overview of the structure of the course, so I guess there's no surprises about what it looks like when you're enrolled. And the course is a university-wide course, so there are a few options on this page which probably actually don't apply to the students that would be coming in from information studies and communications. But the structure of the course is really quite simple. In the first semester, you undertake 3 subjects. It is a part-time course, so 2 of them are 4 credit points, and they have satisfactory and unsatisfactory assignments. So it's a little different potentially to maybe master's study, where your courses may have all been 8 credit points or 16 credit points. There's 2 4 credit points ones here. So the first one is First Nations ways of knowing, being and doing in research. Then the second 4 credit point is a research proposal subject. So you either do Res 500, which is a research proposal, or IKC 504, which is if you were planning on doing research with First Nations people, you would do that subject to help really guide you, and you would be working with academics in the School of Indigenous and Aboriginal Australian Studies. I think that's what SICS stands for, to really support your learning there as well. And in that first semester, you'll also undertake ASH 505, which is a research methods subject. So although you're doing 3 subjects in that first session, and it might not look like what part-time enrollment would usually look like to you, you do actually only have 4 assignments across the first session, and you would work with an academic who would be your research supervisor, and they will provide, they'll have meetings with you, provide you with guidance about what research looks like, and also support you along the way. So you're not sort of just set off adrift. You're provided with some one-on-one supervision from someone in your area. And so that first session has the online classes and coursework associated with the subjects and your one-on-one supervision. And then in the second semester, you're enrolled in ASH 510, which we kind of call a dissertation subject. And so this dissertation subject, it doesn't have classes, it doesn't have any set coursework. You just spend the time with your research supervisor, one-on-one, conducting your research, performing your research analysis, usually performing your research in that session, and then writing your dissertation. So it's 10 to 12,000 words dissertation. And in that second session, you really have one-on-one supervision with your supervisor as well. So although 10 to 12,000 words might seem like a daunting amount, it really does come together with your research proposal in the first session, your research methods subject, and of course, the support from your supervisor. In fact, a lot of students find that 10 to 12,000 words isn't enough for them to convey all of the ideas that they want. So that's kind of what the course looks like. It's 1 year across 2 sessions, and it is part-time enrollment. And particularly that second session, really you have the flexibility in working on your dissertation, meeting with your supervisor when you need to, when you want to, and the supervision really supports that. If you just go to the next slide. So on the next slide, I have some key queries that people often ask. So what mode is it? It's part-time, it's completely online. I should have said on the previous slide that the classes are all recorded. That's non-mandatory attendance, so you can catch up if you have to work during the times or you're not available for online classes. It does take 1 year part-time. Unfortunately, you can't speed it up. That's just the way it is. We do have Commonwealth supported places for this course, and which means that it's a little cheaper than full fee paying places. And so it means you can also get HECS if you're a domestic student. So how many subjects? As I said, 4 subjects, although they're kind of spaced a little strangely, with the 2 4-credit points in the first session, an 8-credit point, and then a 16-credit point. It's a bit strange, a bit different probably to other study, but it's all designed, this course was designed with all of the subject coordinators working together. So they're all very aware of the workload that you have in the other subjects and what's going on in the other subjects. The length of the final dissertation is between 10 and 12,000 words, and that is part of that key entry requirement to get you into the PhD, that written dissertation. So if you had enrolled in the Master of Information Studies with Applied Research, you would do a dissertation as well, or if you were in the Master of Communication, you would also do a dissertation, which would get you into a PhD, depending on your grades. And how will you be supported? As I said, the real support and the real uniqueness of this course, kind of compared to other coursework that you might have done, is that one-on-one research supervision with your supervisor. So they support you in designing your research, in developing it, in making it something that's manageable for a 1-year small course. But you also will have opportunities to participate in research seminars and workshops. So you'll have the opportunity to participate in our HDR colloquium, which is something that is run through the faculty for HDR students, but also we'll have access to our research training calendar, which is run through our graduate office and has all sorts of workshops, more workshops than you could probably ever need as a single student. So it's not only that we have your supervisor, the coursework, but there's also a whole schedule of research training classes, librarian support, and all of those things that you might need. And the supervision, how does that work? Well, basically at the start of the session, you have a conversation with your supervisor and you say, I'm available at this time. They say, okay, I'm available at this time. And you work out a schedule of meetings that works for you. So that in itself as well is really flexible. Sorry, I just need to take water. And just onto the next slide where I have the application process. So very similar to the PhD, it's really important that you have a think before you apply about what you're interested in. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be what you finally end up doing, particularly because the coursework and your supervisor will help you develop your ideas and thinking. But we do need to have a general idea of what you're interested in when you apply. So when you apply for the course, you can just go to the Graduate Certificate in Research course site on the CSU website, and there'll be a big button that says apply now. And if you click that and go through the process, through the admissions process, the admissions team will send you a form. And on that form, we will just ask you whether you have already spoken to someone about supervision and what your research topic is. It's just a one-page form. And so when you receive that form, you have two choices really. The first is to say, no, I haven't spoken to anyone. Here's my research ideas. Or yes, I have spoken to someone. They said they're interested in being my supervisor. Here's their name and here's my research idea. So on the form, it's just essentially two boxes, but the second box, we call it a project summary. And we just ask you to kind of put a few details about what you're interested in studying. And if you're not really sure what you might put in there, I've just got on the slide here, have a think about the who, the what, the where, and the why. And if you can just write a sentence or two on each of those components, that's enough information for me to understand what you're interested in doing and help find you a supervisor if you haven't contacted someone. And so it is similar to the PhD where you kind of have the option to talk to people, lecturers or academics whose work you're interested in before you apply, see if they have capacity or time to supervise you, or you can apply and we can find you a supervisor in the admissions process. So just keep that in mind that you will kind of go through, it's a bit of a funny process. You will actually apply and then the admissions team will reach out to you and say, hey, we need you to fill in this form. And then once we have that form, Kasey and I have a discussion about supervisor capacity, who in the school can supervise. We get that person's agreement, we get the head of school's agreement, and then we can process your application. So it's not an instant yes or no. It does take a little while, but that's why that form is also really important that you fill it in accurately so we can get a really good idea of what you're interested in and ensure that we give you a supervisor who's got expertise in your area. So I think that's it from my slides.
Yeah, I think so. Great. Thanks so much, Kate. Very great. Yeah, it's so informative. And I do think that grad cert is a great degree and option for students. And as you said, maybe to go to the PhD, but maybe just to do some research and see if you like it. And so with that, now I hand over to Jade Smith, who graduated last year, again, with the Master's of Information Studies specialization in applied research, which includes the graduate certificate subjects. So she's kind of done that. Basically, the specialization is just those subjects. So really similar pathway to the PhD. And also with that, I want to just take a moment to congratulate Jade on winning the Libri Journal's Best Research Student Paper Award recently for this year in 2025. And that was based on her dissertation from this course. So yeah, just so proud of Jade for that. And I admit I a little selfishly because I was her supervisor, but she did a really fabulous job and we're just so happy as a school to celebrate that with her. So on to you, Jade.
Thanks so much, Kasey. I really appreciate that. Oh, and my background just moved. I feel like what Kate was just saying about choosing a supervisor is a really great place to start because it's kind of surreal to be here, having just put in Kasey's name into a form, knowing her kind of graphic novel research and being like, she sounds cool, having sort of nothing to do with her. And then here we are at the end of like I guess like a small research project and just sort of about to be published. So that is very cool. Thank you. And thanks for having me here. I guess like a bit of context or a bit about me before I jump into the sort of Master of Information Studies Applied Research section. So I'm a librarian of about 7 years. I guess some of that as a library assistant as well. I decided to do the library degree to open a few more doors in the library industry. So I was enrolled in the Master of Information Studies. I was also volunteering with ALIA, so Australian Library and Information Association, their working group, ALIA Graphic, so graphic novels and comics, obviously a big interest of mine. And yeah, sort of doing a lot at work and on the side to sort of promote graphic novel collections. And then sort of through the course of my degree, I came across this thing called the Charlotte Henry Study Grant, which sounded like a pretty cool opportunity. They were looking for, so this was ALIA again, we're looking for I guess like a new-ish library student with a research idea. And I saw this opportunity come up and I was like, no, someone else much more clever and talented and experienced in libraries can definitely get that. That's totally fine. It doesn't matter that I have a really cool idea that I'm interested in. It's fine. And thanks, Kasey, for putting that in the chat. Some time went by and they actually either reopened or sort of extended the opening time for this study grant. I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I might just go for that. So I, was awarded the Charlotte Henry Study Grant, I think in 2023 for a research project on graphic novels in public libraries that I hadn't started, that I hadn't really had any sort of experience in pulling together. And I feel like Alia kind of called my bluff in a way, and it's like, oh, I have to go and do the thing now. It also came in an interesting time. I was studying part-time, working full-time, had caring commitments, was quite tired, knew that I wanted to do the masters, but also wasn't sure if I had the energy, and this was just like the kind of kick I needed to sort of keep going through that. So yes, I guess that circles back around to popping Kasey's name in a form and just deciding to go for this applied research specialization, which was fairly new at the time, I think. And so that was like a 3-semester or 3-subject, I guess, course almost. And mentioned by Kate, there were a couple of subjects there that I undertook, which were really interesting, learning about methodology, all sorts of research aspects, which I'm sure Romany will probably go into much more detail than my little research project. Yeah, so that kind of coalesced into, I suppose, this little guy here. So this was also the title of my little research project, became a little sort of zine collecting comics, a snapshot of graphic novel research in libraries. So that was the research project and the zine that came out of the study grant, and has just been an amazing learning opportunity and creative problem-solving opportunity, I suppose. And I really appreciated working quite closely with Kasey, teasing out a lot of research questions and problems and learning a lot about libraries, and I suppose myself in the process as well. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add, but I'm here for questions at the end, and I'm really looking forward to learning more from Romany as well. Thanks, everyone.
That's great. Thanks, Jade. And yeah, because Jade chose a autoethnography method that was even more of a kind of personal discovery than some other different methods you can have. But I think it's a great opportunity in this course specifically to explore those kinds of options instead of doing it, for 6 to 8 years, just trying it out on a smaller level. So yeah, thanks so much, Jade. And with that, one of our most recent SICS PhD graduates here in the stars, Dr. Romany Manuell, And just a shout out to some of the other 6 PhD students, well, graduates here as well, celebrating earlier this year. So thank you so much, Rom.
Thank you. Can I have the next slide? Awesome. So this is what it looks like at the end. I thought I'd kind of go backwards and talk about, you know, the end first and then some of the steps in the middle, and then it probably tell you a bit about myself as well. So my topic was the education and training role of Australian academic librarians. And when it's all over, you get to put it on CROW, the CSU research output, the repository, and everybody can read it and download it. So my supervisors were Mary Carroll and Marianne Kennan and Barbara Combs. And it was really a lovely, perfect fit in the end. And that wasn't where it started. So on the next slide, yeah, it was a really long process, because I think maybe around 2012, I think I actually approached a supervisor and said, I really want to do a PhD. And that person knocked me back and said, oh, I'm not really sure that this is going to be the right track for you. And, you know, she was probably right at the time. I think I had to wait a little bit longer until I found a good topic and a good fit with my supervisors. And with CSU as well, you know, I think that was really, really good. So I also did the graduate certificate in research, but it was an earlier iteration of the program. So it was a little bit more about education rather than research, but I still did some kind of preliminary research methods as well, because I didn't have an honours year. But I did have a couple of published things that I could talk about, and you know, a very strong master's program as well. So the endorsement of candidature, or confirmation as it's sometimes called, that happened for me in 2017. And this slide, the first bit that's not in italics, is actually from that presentation. So you can see it was before the School of Information Studies combined with the School of Communication Studies, the olden days. And look how long it took me, honestly. So from that point, I started with an interview pilot and then started collecting my data. And of course, March 2020, we all know what happened then. So I kept plodding along through COVID, pushing my end date back and back until I finally submitted in September 2023. And then I thought, this is over, you know, it's fine from here on. But no, then you've got to wait for the examiner's reports, and then you've got to respond to the examiners, and it just keeps going on and on. So my graduation was this year in April, and it was a really big deal, I think. Yeah. Okay, so the next slide. I had 2 main motivations for doing this PhD. And I think, you know, it's true what people have said previously, that you've got to choose something that you can kind of stick with for a really long time. And people had warned me about not choosing something around technology, because technology changes so rapidly. So I was very glad about that. But my main motivation was around moving from teaching, I was a teacher previously, into librarianship. And a lot of the things that I was reading in the literature were about how much librarians hate teaching, which I thought was, you know, pretty funny and pretty interesting, and something to kind of work on there. But on the next slide, my second motivation was thinking about the role of the librarian, because when I started this PhD, I was working as an academic librarian at Monash University Library, and I had been thinking a lot about the many different things that a liaison librarian has to do. And some of it looks a little bit like teaching, and some of it is about collection development and all these other ideas. So these were 2 ideas that I kept with me throughout the whole of the process, you know, a decade long. And I kept saying to myself, you know, I would be reading about this anyway. I think I'm still curious about it now and continue to read in this area. So, you know, the time will pass regardless. You might as well enroll if that's, you know, something that you feel like is part of your future. And then the next slide. So this was the other thing that held me up. So around 2022, I got this new job, and I suddenly wasn't an academic librarian anymore. I moved to the Australian Council for Educational Research. And you might know this company, you know, that by the acronym ACER, we make some large scale tests like GAMSAT to get into medical school, and also LANTITE if you've ever tried to become a teacher before. So suddenly I was thrown into this world where everybody around me had a PhD. And one of the reasons I was hired was because I was finishing my PhD at the time. So that was also perfect, because then I got to partner with the people that were undertaking research in a different way from the way that I had experienced in universities. Brilliant stuff. So then the final slide, this is kind of what it looks like when you put it all together, which is, I think, is really funny. So I became a teacher. I still call it library school. I went to library school in 2008. For a little while, I became a school librarian, and I went and worked in Vanuatu before I became an academic librarian, and now I'm a research librarian with a PhD. So I think, you know, the great thing about continuing to study throughout your career path is that you can kind of draw a narrative for yourself and say, you know, this is a range of things that I'm interested in and a range of places that my life can go. That's it.
Cool. Thanks for that, Rom. And yeah, I hadn't realized that you had done the grad cert in research as well. Yeah. And did
Fun
you feel that
times.
that helped? Did you have a totally different topic, or when you?
I did. Yeah. I think I had a totally different topic. I was looking at maybe it was similar. You know, people who are rejecting teaching. It was much more education focused, I think, and a little bit, you know, not as fun and not as expansive, because it's got to be like a short scope in that particular time. Yeah.
But you were able to use some of the skills, I guess, and kind of experiences you were getting in the subjects.
Yes, absolutely. One of the subjects that I did was just qualitative research. So that was like more methodology than I had ever experienced in my previous studies, and incredibly useful. I also enrolled in quantitative research, but I was a little bit scared of the maths, and unfortunately I unenrolled.
That's okay. The social sciences are, I think, lend themselves well to qualitative at times, but
yeah, and maybe one day in future I'll go back, because people do ask me about it in the workplace. You know, it's a good skill to have.
Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Kate, Jade, and Rom for sharing sharing your experiences, and Kate for the extra information in the grad cert. So now we're just open for questions. And again, here is that QR code to the SICS website, the dual research degree, which has some more detailed steps there, which we kind of glossed over today. But yeah, feel free to go off mic or type questions into the chat.
While people have a think, because I know sometimes people need to sort of have a think about their questions and muster up the courage. Romany, sounds so cool, and I cannot wait to read your thesis. Nothing really prepared me for how much teaching would be involved in being an academic librarian, and that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it just was a complete surprise as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
super interesting stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're not alone. So I interviewed 38 librarians in the end, and all of them said some variation about that. Either they said, oh, I didn't expect it at all, or they said, oh, you think that's teaching? I don't think that's teaching, which is interesting as well.
Super interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And Jade, you were thinking maybe of doing a PhD sometime, weren't you?
Who knows?
Yeah, the option is always there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Anita, for coming too. Sorry, I haven't seen you there.
It's all right. It's good to hear everyone.
Yeah, Anita, Sandizo, and Tina Tina's our head of school, of course, but also some potential supervisors. And then, of course, I didn't introduce Crystal directly, but she's also a PhD student finishing up within the year. So that's why I didn't ask her to contribute anything here, because I'm very aware of how the time it's taken. Did you want to share anything, Crystal, from your experiences? Because you didn't do these courses specifically, but you had done the Masters of Educational Research, I think it was.
Yeah, I had a slightly roundabout way of coming to the PhD as well, which I think a lot of us do when we come out of industry. So I had done a Master of Education in Teacher Librarianship at another university, and it didn't have the research component to it. So then I needed to do a research project of some kind. And at the time I was eligible for the Master of Educational Research. And so it allowed me to do the qualitative subject. I did the quantitative subject. Oh my goodness. But I am glad that I did it, because I do find myself in that world of numbers a bit more than I had expected. So it was good to have that, even though I didn't do so great in it. But, I learned something. And then I also that's how I got connected with Kasey to do the year-long research project, which then led to the PhD. So I very intentionally enrolled in that, knowing that I wanted to go into the PhD. Yeah.
Yeah, and Crystal was another good one. She got her master's published right away.
Thanks to Kasey. She sent me this email and said, "Hey, look, they're calling for things, and this yours would be perfect." I said, "Okay." So I just did it without even really thinking about it, and so it's yay, Kasey.
Yeah,
Kasey's very good at that.
Oh yeah.
I'm a good bully.
It shows how important the great supervisors
Definitely.
have the impact. It's great. Oh, thank you so much, everyone. I just wonder, our two recent graduates, one from Master Applied Research and one from PhD. What's your drive for pursuing research degree? There might be some comment. Just the potential student might be want to know, especially who are professionals. They always need to balance the work and their additional research, especially having one like master's research or PhD. So I wonder, how could you please share your experience about your drive for pursuing the research degree?
Should I go first? I think for me, it's always been about curiosity. So it wasn't about getting a job necessarily. I worked the whole time, full time, and studied part time. I just, there was something that I was passionate about, and I just wanted to know more about it. I'm a big reader, of course. That's why I became a librarian in the first place. So I knew I was going to continue to read about it, for the rest of my life. That's it. But yeah, it's really hard. And I think Mary Carroll said something to me at the beginning. She said, this is not about how smart you are. This is about being dogged. So, that drive is so important. You've got to make this commitment to yourself that you are going to finish this thing, even if it takes you many, many years. And yeah, it's about persistence, as Kate says. Totally. Jade?
I completely agree about the curiosity part. I'm just super interested in how things work. And also just, I don't know, how different libraries can be. They're so similar in many ways, and then they're so different in many other ways as well, coming from public libraries, school library, academic library. Yeah, and then I guess part of it as well is Kasey mentioned before, I chose sort of an autoethnographic methodology. So I just have a writing background as well. So I was just really interested in pairing sort of writing, a little bit of creative writing, and research, and just kind of seeing what happened next. Yeah, so it was interesting, and it was really fun and hard and all of the things.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing.
I agree. The curious mindset, that's so important in so many aspects of education, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry, Tina.
It's great. Thank you very much. I think that's really valuable. Why we pursue the PhD research or master research. That's really as Jade mentioned, the hard part, challenges, of course, always. But you say one of the Romany's you started with, when you started the PhD, you were academic librarian. Now you're a research librarian. I say the skills are transferable. Definitely. And this is really also very striking. The question is,
how we can, as practitioners or librarians in the field, how we can contribute to the field. That's having ourselves, study something really, front that within all these impact, trying to understand more logical thinking and critical thinking, all these skills, not only about the research topic itself, but all these skills we learned through the way, and all these persistence, this great mindset. I think this is a journey help us a lot.
Yeah, that's great point, Sina. And actually, I realized, Anita, that you're studying as well right now, that you're writing up your PhD too. Her second PhD, mind you. She's a glutton for punishment. But did you want to share any of your perspective as a student in pursuing your topic?
Oh, I don't know if I can beat whatever has said. Yeah, well, curiosity is the, I guess that's the one word that is key in this, and what I have experienced, and I am still experiencing it to date, is, if I may make an analogy, if you're a runner, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So the stamina, and I can see Kate is also nodding. So I guess you're in agreement with me. It's a long, journey, but you can't really rush it, but you can't stop it either. So you just have to keep going bit by bit, and hopefully I'll get there sometime soon, Kasey.
Yeah, such a good point. And I think with that, every little bit is important, right? You can't end a marathon without taking every step to the finish. So even those little steps that don't seem big, even coming or listening to this presentation is a step there. When I was doing my PhD and I was finishing up, and in that really tough time, I always show students this, and I totally forgot I didn't include it here, but I got this fortune cookie, and it was, life is always harder at the summit. And I kept that on my fridge for years, just like it, such a good way to describe the PhD. I think it is hard, but that's because you're doing something really great and really challenging that not a lot of people end up doing in life, or twice, as some people need it. But yeah, and Cindizo, did you want to share anything? Because you're quite a few years out from your PhD, but what was your experience similar? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay. For me, it was a challenging experience because I was also doing it part-time. I was working as an archivist by then. So really it was stressful to some extent. Yeah. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. But yeah. Well, if there's any other questions, or happy to give some time back. But thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. And Kate and I are really happy to answer any questions about the specific courses. And thanks so much for coming, Kate, and taking the time to speak to, because Kate runs this course for the whole faculty, or now it's the whole uni.
Yeah, the
isn't it?
whole university. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're probably getting so many requests from everyone to come chat.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's something I should have said in mine. It's probably a bit late now. People are probably switching off, but make sure you get your application in soon. There are technically deadlines. We can accept applications quite late towards the start of session 30 next year, but supervisor availability becomes more limited the longer you leave it. So it's really important that if you are thinking about the graduate certificate for next year, that you start to think about applying now. Yeah.
Great.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Thanks so much for coming, and thank you, students, for coming and chatting. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you at the next researchy thing. And with that, I'll just stop the recording and